Good morning. I can't win with you lot, can I? I post a car video and all you want to hear about is my thoughts on digital ID. So go on then, let's do this one, shall we? What we're going to do in this video is we're going to look at the article that the BBC have put out, and then I've got a small essay that I've written that I'm going to show you, and I think you'll like it. So let's do the article first. Keir Starmer is expected to announce plans for a compulsory UK-wide digital ID scheme in a speech on Friday. That's today. The Prime Minister believes it would help crack down on illegal working and modernise the state, according to senior figures in government. Hold your horses, we're going to look at this one in a minute. The practicalities of the scheme will be subject to a consultation, which will also look at how to make it work for those without a smartphone or passport. The previous Labour government's attempt to introduce ID cards was ultimately blocked by the Conservative Liberal Democrat coalition. Earlier this month, Sir Keir said in an interview he thought the debate had moved on. It hasn't. We all still feel the same. Sorry. Carry on with the article. We all carry a lot more digital ID now than we did 20 years ago. I think that psychologically it plays a different part, he said. Reports have suggested the government plans to use a new scheme to check people's right to live and work in the UK. Hold your horses. We're going to do this when we get onto my notes. These checks are currently based on physical documents, although routes to complete the checks online for some people have existed since 2022. The government last year rejected a digital ID proposal suggested by former Prime Minister Sir Tony Blair, but in recent weeks ministers have warmed to the idea as they've come under increasing pressure to tackle illegal migration. Cabinet Office Minister Pat McFadden has also talked about the scheme's potential to improve access to government services. He recently visited Estonia, where digital identity can be used to access services such as medical records, voting and banking. So they're sort of painting a picture here that it's, it's working in Estonia. Yeah, it'll be great here. Employers already have to check that prospective candidates have the right to work in the UK. Since 2022, they've been able to carry out checks on passport-holding British citizens by using digital verification. Home Office Online scheme also exists. It's understood officials have been looking at whether requiring a digital ID could provide a more consistent approach to verifying identity. What is more consistent than a driving licence or a passport? Stop it, Geoff. Finish the article. They're also thought to be exploring whether the scheme could reduce the use of fake documents and make it easier to target enforcement activity. So, I believe that's the end of that. So now let's look at my notes, hastily written this morning. The article claims that digital ID will crack down on illegal working and modernise the state. There's a lot to say about digital ID, but let's start with some basics. This is Keir Starmer who's making the speech, so it's Keir Starmer who's making the push. The claim that digital ID will crack down on illegal working, thereby making good, honest workers of us all. So, should we ask some questions about the man who's pushing this at the moment? The man who wants you to have digital ID to track your every movement has been embroiled in numerous scandals, both during and before he became a Prime Minister. A simple Google of Keir Starmer scandal will give you the basics. We've got a controversial and rather odd relationship with Lord Ali, an openly gay Muslim, and by the way, a 2007 survey of British Muslims showed that 61% believe that homosexuality should be illegal. So I'm not completely sure how this one works. Then there's the Ukrainian rent boys. They are currently on trial for setting fire to Keir Starmer's homes. Quite how a number of Ukrainian rent boys knew where Keir Starmer's homes are. Well, draw your own conclusions. Then there's the huge mess that is the grooming gang scandal, and Starmer is up to his neck in that. And then there's that bizarre moment when he took a public HIV test. Do you remember that one recently? And regarding his personal life, he's an atheist, but he's raising his children Jewish, and he's a member of the Fabian Society. So go down that rabbit hole at your leisure. If digital ID is about immigration, what's he done so far? Well, he's come up with some really catchy slogans like stop the boats and smash the gangs. So does digital ID stop the boats? Does it smash the gangs? How on earth does forcing 69 million people in the UK to comply with a digitally tracked ID system stop the flow of illegal migrants who are either coming across a 21-mile stretch of water or flying in and overstaying their visa? Especially when the UK census showed that there's more than 10 million Brits who don't even have a passport. So they're clearly not working here illegally because they've never even left the country. And especially when the incentive to arrive in the UK in the first place is put in place by the government themselves. So instead of trying to stem the flow of illegal workers into the UK by restricting the freedoms of 69 million people and spending a fortune on the technology to implement it, which, by the way, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I think the contract has already gone to Fujitsu. Did a video on that a couple of years ago. And if you want another rabbit hole, look at Rishi Sunak's family connections to digital identity technology. Let's try that again. Trying to stem the flow of illegal workers into the UK by restricting the freedoms of 69 million people and spending a fortune on the technology to implement it. How about, instead of that, and this is a really simple one, how about we remove the incentives to come here in the first place? That's a really easy one that can be done overnight. Instead of wasting the money on digital ID for your own citizens, invest some money in a system to speedily process those who arrive illegally. No more hotels, no more HMOs, no more 3 meals a day, no more mobile phones on arrival, none of that. Let's have some pride in what we've got and what we've built and make it 100 times more difficult to A, get here, and B, access stuff once you're here. Sure, I'm just a simpleton, so what do I know? But hey, speak to anyone in the street and they do generally agree. The fact that Starmer and Labour and every previous government has never done anything to remove the incentives and stem the flow says everything about how these people feel about the future of the nation. Can anyone remember a policy that actually did something good for the real normal people who live here? I can't, so why would digital ID be any different? How about, before we spend any money on any more forms of identity, because we already have plenty, how about we go and look at where all the money has gone in recent years? Where's all the Corona contract money? Where's all the HS2 money? How about no more spending on big projects at all until all those dodgy multi-million pound contracts have been repaid? Notwithstanding the fact that I've done videos recently on just how many councils are bankrupt. I appreciate that this has been a bit of a run around the houses, but the thing is, and let me talk frankly here, the government has completely lost the trust of the people, and rightly so. We all have questions about what's actually gone on over the last 5 or 6 years, regardless of which government has been in charge. What really happened during Corona? You know, when the government was suppressing information and paying huge amounts of money to media companies to push their narrative, not just in newspapers, but to influence the storylines in TV soap operas. What happened to the nation when the government told us to stand 2 metres apart, to not see our family at Christmas, to stand in a queue outside the supermarket wearing a mask in the rain with a security guard on the door, to stand outside and bang pots and pans, and for what? I think they did it just because they could. The thing is, my distrust of the government started long before COVID, but COVID ramped it up to a whole new level. I don't really see any distinction between any of the political parties these days, because it seems to me that regardless of who's in number 10, nothing ever seems to get any better. We seem to have a distinct lack of people in power who want to do good for the people in the UK, who want to improve the lives of the people in the UK and make decisions that will improve the position and status of what we used to call Great Britain. I need to get rid of some of these layers. That will make sense. Now I'm going to see his face again. Look. So just to summarise what is a very brief look at the background to digital ID, this is not comprehensive in any way, shape or form. I've been documenting digital ID on my channel for a while. I have made videos about it in the past. We've already done the consultations. Everything's already been done. And I think they wanted to get this in place by September 2023 and they failed. So we can hope that this will fail again. But let's summarise. Just to summarise, what is a very brief look at the background to digital ID, we've got a man with a dodgy track record proposing the most intrusive Big Brother implementation of an expensive digital tracking system on the basis of solving a problem that could be resolved simply by removing the incentive for people to cross through multiple safe countries to get to our cold, grey island. As a country, we are protected by an ocean. We're bordered by thousands of miles of safe countries. Physically and logically, we should be the last nation that immigrants want to reach. So if that's not the case, then clearly the incentives are the problem. Who's put in place the incentives? Give you a clue. He looks a bit like that. Digital ID is a line in the sand that simply must not be crossed. Knowing what you know about our leaders, our government, their intent and their track record, do you honestly believe that digital ID would be used only and exclusively for the greater good? Or would the scope of it slowly grow to include every aspect of your life? This is what the conspiracy theorists have always feared, and this is probably the most important slide of this presentation. Digital ID is the gateway that allows the complete and total control over your life. They'll sell it as stopping illegal workers or for the convenience or ease of use, and before you know it, your banking and benefits and driving license and passport will be connected to your social media, and one tick in a box on a government computer will switch you off. It'll allow for geofencing, and I personally think the cameras and sensors for this are already in place, and it'll mean the next time there's a pandemic and they tell you not to go anywhere or not to buy or only to buy essentials, they'll be able to enforce it via your digital identity. Think about it. The 5G rollout, it's not for your mobile phone signal. It's clearly for something else. Like I said, they're already putting all this in place. Your bank card won't work at shops outside of your area or won't work for products that aren't on the approved government list. Your electric car won't charge if you've gone over your approved mileage quota. You won't be able to book that flight if your carbon score is already exceeded. Digital ID is the single biggest assault on our freedoms, and it must be resisted at all costs. There are links in the pinned comments and description for various petitions that you can sign, and I'm pretty sure plenty of other channels will be posting about this today. I can't tell you how important this is. That's it. That's all I got. Thanks for watching.